Welcome back to Your 1230, the only podcast where our guests tell their story with the help of 12 questions in just 30 minutes. I'm your host, Mike Salitro, and today we are very excited to be joined by Eric Holsapple. Eric has spent decades in business, has lots of years in real estate experience, university teaching, and knows a thing or two about mindfulness. He's the author of Profit with Presence, The 12 Pillars of Mindful Leadership. Eric, welcome. We are really excited to be speaking with you tonight.
I'm excited to be on. Thanks for having me.
Of course, of course. Thank you for joining us. Um, as we talked a little bit up front before we hit record, 12 pillars can be a lot, can be intimidating to some. If I only have time for two pillars, or I want to know what are the big ones, where should I start with the pillars of mindful leadership?
The first three pillars are the foundational pillars, and the other nine have to do with mindset within that foundation. Different mindsets you can bring to it. So the first foundation is to be present and practice mindfulness. It's just being anything you do worthwhile requires some practice, and it takes a little bit of a time and practice. The good news is it takes a lot less to get started than most people think. We start people with 2 minutes of meditation in our programs, just because it can be a pretty noisy place, and I've just found it can be self-defeating if you go too long to begin with. And we work people up to 10 minutes over about 6 months. So, and there's some other things to be mindful, gratitude, those kind of things that come in some of the later pillars. But if you're going to meditate, and everybody doesn't have to, we usually start pretty short. The second one is find your purpose in life. I just find so many people, I can't get motivated, or I can't get my team motivated. And I just find when someone really knows what they're about, what they're here to do on the earth, for this time, motivation, I mean, as long as you're doing that, you find a way to do it. Motivation ceases to be such a big issue. So, but it takes a little bit of a dive. You mentioned university teaching. I was 20 years teaching mostly seniors in real estate at Colorado State University. And all the time they'd come in the last semester or two, starting to think about, oh, well, I'm going to get out of here. What am I going to do? And I say, well, you know, why are you here? And it would say, most always it was something like mom and dad said they'd pay if it was engineering or business, and I'd say, well, the next step, is a job and a marriage and a house and kids. And I say, you wake up in your 50s. So you might want to spend a little bit of time figuring out what you want to be doing, because it's quite a treadmill once you get on it if you're not in something that you enjoy. And purpose and passion go together. It's just finding those things that really make you tick. So there's quite a bit in the book about that. The third pillar is quite a mouthful, excuse me. Find your create clarity, vision, intention, commitment, and habits. Really just setting your plan for your life. And intention is so important about what you intend. Don't live a life on accident, live a life of intention. And then commitment and habits go hand in hand. If I make commitments one place, but my habits are drastically different from that, I find that I break my commitments. And I find we are our habits. That's what the things that we do each day are really who we are. So spend a lot of time through awareness and through mindfulness, figuring out exactly what our habits are, because a lot of them are more or less unconscious. We don't really pay attention to them. It's just doing the next thing. And then over time, and it does take some time, culling out some bad habits and creating habits that support what we commit. Because then when I fall off my commitment a little bit, my habits hold up for a while. Or, if that vacation happens or the sickness or whatever, my habits fall off, my commitment gets me back on. So it's really just like that. Other pillars have to do with, your way of being and gratitude and service and a lot of different things. So those are the main ones. I call them foundational pillars.
Thank you so much for kind of walking us through the big ones there, at least the top three. I've got a lot of follow-ups, and I'm going to start kind of with mindfulness, because I think that's where some people either hit a roadblock of like, well, I don't know what that means, so it's not important,
Yeah.
or I'm fine. I don't need to worry about that. Or that's not for me. But I think it's one of those things that it's a never-ending journey once you get an understanding of it, and you hit on some of the gratitude and meditation pieces to kind of understand that. How did you discover that this is important for you and pretty much for everybody?
Well, boy, how did I discover it? That's a life story. I was, and I'll jump in the middle of it a little bit, but I was successful. I came out with an MBA in my, 20s and was immediately successful in real estate. Was the CEO in my 20s of a North American division for an Australian company. I traveled all the time. I had all the outside signs of success, the title, the salary, the apartment, uh, but inside I was kind of dying, and I was really good at it. And I just was naturally good at it, but I was overweight. I'm an athlete. I wasn't working out. I was drinking too much. I was single. I was just working 7 days a week, really. Uh, in Australians, they're at different time zones. So you get off at 6, and then you get to get on the phone with them. And when they travel around and they travel all the time, they just like meet on Sundays because they're busy during the week. So why don't we meet in Houston it was just not great. Anyway, I got a transfer to Boston, which I know you're close to. The New York Stock Exchange company in Boston that they had a majority interest in was in trouble, and I'd done a good job and everything else. They said, "We need you to get to Boston right away." And I got there, and it's close to where I grew up in Maine. And I remember it was the first time. It was good news. There was enough problems in town that I didn't have to travel, except for down to New York to meet with bankers that wanted some money. So I bought a scale, and actually, my mom came down from Maine and helped me, outfit an apartment. I bought a scale, and I hadn't been hanging around health clubs or anything. I knew I couldn't get my tie done, my belt done. I kind of had Dunlop disease, my belly Dunlopped over my belt. I just, but I wasn't giving up, so I wasn't going to go buy all that new clothes and everything because this couldn't be me. But I bought that scale, and it was just one of those epiphany moments, one of those aha moments where I was shocked. I was shocked. It'd been years since I stepped on one. It was just like, wow, you got to do something. You're not going to be around very long. And I already was having some symptoms, health symptoms. And I did. In that moment, I started back working out and lost a bunch of weight, quit drinking for a time. Uh, and somehow in that, I found yoga. And I don't know how, because at that time it wasn't on every corner, or, it wasn't internet there, you know, all those things. So I don't know how, but I just found a DVD of it was Patricia Walden, who had a studio in Boston. I remember, but I just started doing yoga, and I quit that job. I went back to university. I said I need more purpose in life. I'm going to try teaching. Uh, and yoga found it just was something that got me back in my body. As Ken Robinson says, my body had become something that takes my head from meeting to meeting. So I got back in it. I got back into athletics. I actually took up golf. I, just got back in it. And then the other thing that happened was my oldest brother was estranged from the family, but he's a poet. My dad was a football coach. And that was like oil and water. And without going into the details, he started meditating and he came back to the house. My dad didn't change. He came back to the house. He opened up to my dad. My dad opened up, and I was like, I got my family back. And he said, "You want to try it?" And I did, and it was a game changer. I started it just privately, and that's the one thing I'd say to the audience: you don't have to tell anybody you're meditating. Anything can be completely private. I was for 20 years. I hardly said a word to anybody about it. I say I didn't come out. I stayed in the closet with it. But later on, I decided I wanted to do this and kind of promote it for different reasons. But it just reduced my stress, made me less angry, improved my sports life, and improved. And in a business context, mindfulness is focus. One word. All the long-winded explanations or things like non-judgment, that kind of thing, those are things that have you lose focus. But basically, especially in a business context, can you focus on what I choose to focus on for the time I choose to focus on it, to the exclusion of everything else? And then what I say is that's a huge skill to learn at work, because then when I go home, I want to turn that focus on my family, because there's too much going out too. When we're home, we're not really focused there. Then we bring it back to the office the next day.
I know that's only part of the story and probably just the broad strokes, but thank you for sharing that because that highlights a lot of what I'm sure we're going to be talking about and how it was so powerful for you. And you hit on kind of upfront the focus piece, and that some of us who don't take the time to be mindful are just kind of sleepwalking or walking through the steps subconsciously, unconsciously, without realizing what we're doing. So for anybody who's listening to this, like, that sounds good. I would like to be more focused. I would like to be more present. But not only do I not want people to know what I'm doing, but how do I even get started? What do I do tomorrow to get on this path?
Well, first of all, it doesn't have to start with meditation. Meditation is very effective and very powerful, but it is, for a lot of people, it's intimidating and it's a hard way to start. Gratitude is a great way to start. Just start with a gratitude practice. Taking some walks without your phone, 10 minutes, set the phone down and take a walk and just notice the wind blowing, the birds and those kind of things. You just start focusing. Uh, and if you do want to try meditation, there's all kinds of online things now. On our website, there's free meditation lessons, a 21-day free trial, just 10 minutes a day of learning some mindful movement and meditation. There's all kinds of apps would be any. I eventually I encourage people to wean off the app because I don't want that stimulus and response. I want the meditation when I feel stress. I want to just feel myself in my breath and being aware. I don't want to like have to search for my app because I'm stressed. I want to just have it happen. But the cool thing is in a business context, you're in a meeting, and it's not going your way, where someone's, being aggressive, and you just notice yourself in your body. It's just not that big a deal. Things just stop being such a big deal. So it's certainly worth the time. The good news is after a little while, you become more focused, you have more time. I'll give you an example at work too, is like meetings. Stop allowing laptops open and telephone calls and be on your phone during meetings. They take half the time. If you can just be focused during the meeting, but you're there, you're talking, nobody's even listening to you. They're on their phones or they're somewhere else. And it's just, so we really encourage people, if you got to go that, do that. We're going to meet on this now. We'll catch you later. We just can't really focus with that going on, but it just cuts the meeting times way down.
Yeah, I love the elimination of distractions. And the other thing I wrote down as you were talking about being present and focus is the ability to do it at home as well, not just to be uh, in that zone at work, but then to come home and bring it to those that you live with, those that I most likely are most important to you, then take a present approach with them. Um, to someone listening, then I'm like, well, that's a lot. I'm kind of just going through the motions now with how can I be present all the time. Um, and kind of, I'm going to tie this into the second pillar you mentioned, the purpose and passion. If someone knows what their purpose is or what they're passionate about and are trying to get there, how can they take those steps to either, as you did, walk away from a job that was not serving them, or to spend more time with the family? What are some basic things people can do to kind of take that step forward?
Well, your intention to be more mindful is huge, to have that intention and make a commitment around it. But it also has to start with habits. You have to start evaluating the habits you are, which are to be distracted and to be not be present. Most of us, even at home, just I don't like to admit it, but the distraction of the phone and things pulling me back makes it so I don't have to deal with people, don't have to deal with things going on. It's an escape. So so it does take a practice. It takes some time away, and business is so good at distracting us. We are the best. We get every little slice of your attention. Oh, there's a slice over there. Let's grab it on Facebook and let's do this for advertisements and let's do this with the Google ad that pops up. And, and I don't see it getting any better with AI and everything else coming out. I think it's going to get worse. So the only thing we can do is demand that we take it back. Take some things off our phone, take your social media, newspaper, whatever, some stuff off your phone, and give yourself some guidelines and just say no during this time, or take a walk. People don't think they can be without their phone, for 10 minutes. We've just gotten to this place in our society where it's almost insecurity with it. So you have to spend some time without your phone and just say, I'm going to pay attention. And that's one of the beauties of a practice is during that time, you're focus in and say, no, I'm just going to work on focus right now. If it's meditate, I'm just going to work on that for a little bit. Or some people like yoga, some people don't. How can I just work in my body? That's mindfulness. Can I pay attention to my body? So it is going to take habits because habits are who you are. And if you don't like your habits, change them. You can change them, but that does take some time. And I'd say be patient with yourself and do it over a long period of time.
That be patient with yourself, I think, is good advice because I think it's easy, especially in a society where we want things yesterday. That I made this change. Why don't I have the results I want already? So, giving yourself the ability
Yeah,
to take the time, make those mistakes. I'm going to take somewhat of a left turn here and kind of try to tie a couple things together.
great.
But your third pill that you referenced involved habits. And in the story, you mentioned getting to a point where you did not recognize yourself, were overweight, and needed to make a change. So, in being mindful and caring for our mental health, part of that is our physical health and habits and diet. So, you mentioned yoga, taking care of your body. How are you able to have good dietary habits if you do, or how does that fit into this piece? Because I feel that's can be a roadblock for many, including myself, where I'm doing all of these things, I'm focusing on all these other areas of my life. I don't have time, I don't have the focus to care about what I eat, when I eat, and what goes in there.
You know, if you're more mindful, you pay more attention to what goes into your body. You also slow down a little bit. You know, you slow down a little bit and you wait for yourself to fill up a little bit before you get up, before you stop eating. So, I mean, there are so many different diets out there. It's truly confusing, and there's a different one for everybody. And I don't claim to understand them all, but I do know that you can pay attention to your body and even notice what different foods go do to you. When you feel better when you eat something, and when you don't feel better than you eat something. But I mean, there's mindful eating. It can be just eating a little less portions and paying a little more attention to it. But if we're running at 100 miles an hour, which, I'm as guilty of as anybody, but I use this practice to help slow me down. It is really hard to put nutritious food in our body because we just don't take the time. We just grab it and eat it, and we're doing the next thing, or we're reading the paper or on the laptop or everything while we're eating. We don't even really notice. So the practice there would be when you eat, eat. Take that time and try not to be doing other things and plan a little bit for the next day, what you're going to be eating. We don't think about it. We're running, we're distracted, and we just grab it. Oh, I don't have a magic pill on it for sure. And it's food can be a tough thing, but I know that mindfulness, I see people when they start the practice, and I don't espouse it, and they start going to church, they start going to the gym again, they start other things, they have better habits, they cut down on their drinking because they're more mindful and they start noticing the effects more. If you can, our mind is swirling with thoughts, some 6,000 thoughts a day, and it can make it so we don't even really feel our bodies. By getting in our bodies, our mind slows down and we start to notice the impacts of our digestive system and some of those things more. So, and I'm not saying that's a magic pill. It's going to happen in an hour. I don't think it is. But over time, as you slow down and start noticing, you will naturally take better care of yourself, whatever
Well,
diet you choose.
and I think that's so far that's as I'm feverishly taking notes here. That's my takeaway, that none of these things are overly difficult in and of themselves,
Oh,
but sticking with them and then understanding that it's time and it's commitment to get them right and to stay
yeah.
the course. That's the hard part. That it's not anything that you can't do. It's just a lot of little things building up on each other and kind of putting in the energy and the focus to accomplish what you see in front of you and what is important to you. Um, the other thing that I wrote down here that I think is important is that that's not a big deal piece. I think it was in the context of work, something that may not be going your way or they find frustrating. And I find that's often the answer with a lot of things, some things that you stress out and worry about before they happen that, well, it didn't work out that way, or I was really terrified of this and, wasn't as horrible as I thought. Um, is there
We
ever a
worry,
time when, go ahead.
I just think we worry about so many things we can't do anything about. So we say, if you can do something about it, take action and do it. And if you can't, accept it. There are so many things that we don't control that we fret about. I can't control if the Fed's going to cut the interest rate or if we're going to go in another war or with inflation rate 6% or 3%. I can't control those things. I have to work on what I can control, which primarily is my mindset. With work, I can't do it like I'm a genie, but with some practice, I can control how I react to things, and how I respond to things. Hopefully not react, that I respond to things, you know, because I say life's a pitcher. I don't know if I'm going to get a curveball or a spitball or a, tsunami, pandemic, or the lottery. But to get up to that plate, I need the right mindset. I need to get on base, whatever it takes to get on base, if it's a walk or a steal or whatever it is. But I have to have the right mindset to sit up there and be aware of the pitches and play. If I have the wrong mindset, then, you know, and the other thing I would say is I've been in business a long time. Some of my best deals have come from failures in which I have learned something and I stayed aware and stayed with it and said, I didn't like losing that money. But look, we took that knowledge and we did it over here and made it back 3 times. If we're aware, but you're usually so focused on what we thought we wanted, we don't notice the real opportunities out there. We get so discouraged and upset. I didn't get it. Well, okay. That's where the non-judgment comes in and the awareness comes in and say, okay, that's fine. But what is out there? What is available? Uh, Mindfulness is huge on seeing opportunities, huge on being aware of things and not being closed-minded and being open and learning to have discussions with people. You learn so much when you slow down and just ask somebody some questions and really care about it, the answers. You learn so much and people want to help you.
Kind of with that learning from others, being in the university setting, teaching students, having done so for a good amount of time, what what do you find works for somebody who's making that transition from, as you said, I'm here because mom and dad told me they go, they pay, or I should go to school, but I'm about to take that next step. How can somebody, either about to join the workforce, looking to change jobs, what types of things can they do to prepare themselves from a student, an academic, to a professional, but one that is in a career or at least a job that they enjoy being in and one that they get fulfilled from?
Well, there's a couple different ways I could take that question. The first I'm going to say is to take a little time to find out who you are, what makes you tick, and what you really love. Because culture has told us, and our parents have told us, and schools have told us, that this is the route. I go to the right schools, I get the good grades, I get the big job, I do that, then I need the condo, and I need this and these vacations, and then someday I get to be happy. And I've just found, and I have a lot of successful friends, and I was successful myself, is that even that comes true, you change the goalposts. When you get what you thought you wanted, it's a bigger house, it's the second house, it's the bigger vacation. In another time, say first we want to travel, we take a bus. Say, oh, if I could just fly. Then we fly. We say, oh, what are those guys sitting up in first? And we sit up in first, and then they say, if I could just fly private. Oh, that would solve it. And now we got, everybody going to the moon. It's just that we keep moving the goalposts and we never are present because we're waiting for that day and we've never learned to be present. Harvard's done some work. Sean Archer wrote a great book called The Happiness Advantage. And, happiness comes first. The most successful people are happy, and then they're successful, and then they really enjoy the success. I'm not saying you can't have financial success and grinding it out and not being happy. That would be a lie. I have a lot of people I know that have done it that way. But I haven't seen them find happiness that way. I've seen them then they want to go to the next thing or they just need more. So take some time figuring out where your zone is, what makes you happy, what you really love to do. And then passion comes. You don't care if you're working 12 hours a day. You get out of bed. You're not dragging yourself into work. You love what you're doing. You're happy. And people like to call happy people. People like to call somebody that's in a good mood and wants to know about them and how they're doing and remembers their kids' names and, says, oh, by the way. And the other thing I'd say is those relationships are so important because people don't call you back in a downturn. Transactional people don't call you back in a downturn. Relationships call you back. And, I've been through about 5 major downturns in my career. And I can tell you, relationships have got me through every single one of them. It's been, not that they call and they say, I'll buy that from you, but they're going to at least talk to you and say, have you talked to Bob? Or, they talk to you and give you some advice or something happens. But like the transactional people, you can have a list. We had a list during 08 with the housing crisis, 250 names. No one called us back, gone. So it's really, really important. And mindfulness is about relationships. It's about fostering relationships. So I don't, so that's another thing I would tell a young kid, watch your relationships. They're huge.
That's great advice. And as I look up here, we're almost nearing time somehow. So, um, Eric, where can our listeners find you? Where can they connect? Where can they pick up the book if they'd like to do that?
Yeah. Well, our website is livinginthegap spelled out.org. It's a 501(c)(3). You can buy the book there, and there's also all kinds of free resources. There's a newsletter there. There's 21 day. There's learn to meditate. There's a number of free resources on that and blogs and Amazon. It's a Wall Street bestseller. It's available for sale on Amazon, and it's also an Audible if that's how you prefer to listen. So but whatever, get started small and be consistent.
So we will post all that. And I think that's one of the things that certainly comes across from our talk from as I look through my scribble here, the taking action, the getting started, the acknowledgement of here's where I am, being present, and then being tied to something that you're either passionate about or you realize that this is why I do what I do. This has a meaning to me. And as you reference, working 12 hours no longer seems like this is never going to end. I'm happy to do this. It's Saturday morning. It's late Thursday night. I don't mind doing this. Um, so your story that you share with us is a powerful one because I think, you talk to a lot of those 20-year-old students. That's what they want. I want an MBA. I want a job that takes me around the globe. Or I'm making these big decisions. But and you reference, plenty of people who have unfulfilled or unhappy professional careers. So I'd like to kind of end where we started. Um,
I
you know,
didn't
my
change. I didn't change careers. I didn't change industries. I just changed the way I did business.
and
Yeah.
that's it. That the
Yeah.
mindset where you are kind of
Yeah.
can trump all of those things. Um, it, is there ever a time where, um, you know, it's too hard. I can do this later. Is there ever a good answer to kind of put off on having a positive mindset or being more present, or is it always something that we can kind of get started on now positively?
It's only now. People that put it off don't do it. And you just find you become so much more efficient. You just can't, after a while, I've been doing this 30 some years, I can't stand not having something done. I don't labor about it and procrastinate. I just do it. I'm really careful what I say I'll do because I know myself, and this is power for anybody that wants power, is knowing that when you say something, you'll do it. Then people start depending on you and want to ask you to do things. So no, there isn't a time. I mean, if you miss a day, just don't miss two. Just get back on it and do it. But there is, and it just gets so much easier. It gets easier to do it than not to do it after a while because you look forward to that time because it is peace. It's joy. It's an internal job. I mean, the newspaper's never, going to give it to you ever. Maybe a day, but the next day they'll take it back.
I love that. I'm careful of what I say that I'll do. So, that's
Totally.
wonderful advice that, do the things you say you're going to do and then limit where your commitments are there. So, Eric, thank you so much for joining us. This
Thank
has
you
been
for
a
having me.
blast. I look forward to doing it again. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Got it.